let's talk some tech stuff right now with Mathew Dickerson. And we all know Google is watching that, but now they can prove that our habits have changed.
When we've had previous pandemics, not that they're a daily occurrence, but when we've had previous pandemics across the world, it would have been incredibly difficult to trace where people were going. And if authorities at the time said, stop moving about, you're spreading this virus, it would have been very difficult to work out who was going where and what was happening, but not anymore. Now with things like Google Maps, we can actually look at the metadata, anonymously of course, Andrew, no one will be tracking each individual and where they were going, but you can track anonymously all those groups of people and how much they're moving around. And the reduction in movement has been quite incredible. There's been about a 50% reduction at various locations around Australia in major cities. And the other thing that's interesting is that there's been a huge increase, as you would expect, in people staying at home. So all that collated data gives us a pretty good indication that people are doing what authorities are asking us all to do. We're staying home, we're staying away from crowded locations. You can see the photos of that, but more importantly, you can see the metadata and all those phones that are doing what they should be doing.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. The ABC were actually using the data as well. And it blew me away that all of a sudden this had been released, and they said that staying at home had increased by 13%, and at least two-thirds had stopped going. It was amazing that they could actually track you, like by pinging you at the shops or being at home. I thought it was amazing.
It is amazing, and the great part about it is as long as Google release the information to the authorities when they ask for them or release it publicly, you can get that information almost real time. So, for example, if the government said, everyone, you've got to stop doing A, B and C tomorrow and change the rules around the lockdown rules, they could see within a day whether that was having an impact, whether people were changing their habits based on the rule changes that might come into place. So that's where, again, previous pandemics haven't had the ability to see whether the public were making changes to their habits immediately in the same way that we've got now with technology.
Yeah, and I'm having a look here at some of this. They can actually find out that cities in full lockdown, such as Rome, have dropped to as low as 4% mobility.
Yeah, quite incredible, isn't it? It was actually quite interesting looking at some of the data, comparing Sydney and Melbourne, looking at the dates some of those changes occurred, some of the changes from the government, and then how quickly people responded, looking at movements around the world. Singapore was interesting. Singapore still had a fair bit of mobility, 44% mobility in Singapore. So still a fair bit of mobility, and they've still managed to restrict the spread of the virus over there. Now, they took a very much a go hard and go early sort of function around the virus, and maybe that's worked for them, and now they're back out with a bit more mobility now. So it is fascinating around the world looking at that data and seeing how the spread of the virus compares to that information.
Yeah, can we get the data up on the people in Queensland? Because it seems as though Queensland people are just ruining it for everyone else.
Don't they always?
They're idiots up there, seriously. We all know they haven't got anything between the ears up there in Queensland. Can we just get everyone to start ringing relatives and friends in Queensland and telling them to stop ruining it for everyone else? You don't need to go to markets. And you need to stay 2 metres away from everyone. But because some of them have got two heads, Matt, they can't stay 2 centimetres away from each other.
You're saying they're not sure which head they should stay 2 metres away from?
Yeah, that's exactly right. No, I'm going there. I've lived in Queensland. I know what they're like. That's why I came to my senses and came back.
I'm hoping your program doesn't go into Queensland at this stage.
It's all right. They wouldn't understand it because I can use words with more than 2 syllables in there. Yeah, g'day, how you going? That's about as far as they go in Queensland. You talking about me? Yeah.
I'll let you. I'll let you take the lead on this one. I'll leave it alone.
Yeah, it's all right. It's all right. I'll get us both in trouble. Not the first time. Yeah. I have actually been banned from a Queensland politician's Facebook page because sometimes the truth hurts. So that's probably why I can't get a job in Queensland ever again because. The politician going, you're not letting him back up here. You're not going to believe what he said to me one day.
Well, I don't think this commentary is going to help you get unreleased from that ban at this stage. It's
probably mudgy people listening to this going, oh, geez, we can't even bloody send him away now. Yeah, you're stuck with me, that's it. And look, talking about self-isolation and stuff, this kind of all flows on together. But apparently phone data is going to be used as well to kind of stop the spread of corona. What is going on there?
Well, we've talked about the tracking of metadata, and that's, again, all anonymous, should be sitting there with no tracking of any individuals. They don't know that Andrew Andrews has gone to a certain spot, but they know a phone has gone to a certain spot. But in Victoria, they're looking at actually going a step further. And if they find that there are people moving around areas they maybe shouldn't be, rather than just going and physically looking at those people and see who they are, they might use their phone data, not anonymous, actually looking at individuals' phone data and seeing where they're going and then asking some questions. Why were you going at that location? Should you have been going there? Did you need to go there? And if you haven't got legitimate reasons to actually go to those places, then they might start slapping some fines on you based on where your phone was. Now, the smart move, if you're concerned about being in that situation, is leave your phone at home. Go and do what you're going to do anyway, just don't take your phone with you. I'm not sure if that's a reasonable, sensible way for people to go, because people can't leave home without their phone, but that would be a way to get around it.
See the one in Victoria on the weekend. Apparently a poor teenager was slapped with a $1,600 fine because she went for a driving lesson with her mum.
I know, it's a bit over the top, isn't it?
Yeah, no, look, I understand there are rules in place, but we have to use common sense. But seriously, the amount of people I see from Victoria that whinge, the Victorians still don't get it together, and they're still going on the beach and they're still travelling all over the place. Like, it's just absolutely phenomenal. And to be able to use technology in this way, I think, one, is remarkable, and two, you just can't escape it. It's the way future. Everyone's going to know where you are eventually. Big Brother is always watching.
It is that case of Big Brother, isn't it? So far that's good. We've done well. We've offended Queenslanders and now we've offended Victorians, so we're on fire at the moment.
Look, I won't be able to go anywhere up and down the eastern seaboard the way I'm going.
That's right. Lucky you're in isolation, otherwise you wouldn't be going anywhere anyway.
I know, and I really like Victoria. I've got some great friends in Victoria. I lived in Victoria for 3.5 years. Don't get me wrong, for a Sydney person, I like Melbourne.
Yeah, right.
I shouldn't be saying that because Sydney people go, oh, that bloody backwards joint. But, yeah, I love Victoria. No, I really do. I'm not banned from any politicians' Facebook pages in Victoria, so I think I'm sweet there.
That's a bonus.
Yeah. But, so everyone's working from home at the moment. Internet speeds are down. I know at our joint, mate, every now and then the internet drops out here and there. I suppose at your joint would be the same, wouldn't it?
Well, we try and maximise our speed and put a few things together to make sure it doesn't drop out. And there's some simple tips I'd pass on to everyone. So the first thing is that everyone just assumes that it's the internet congestion, if you like, it's things outside their control. But if you actually start to look at things inside your house, there might be some things inside your house that are impacting it. So one of the things that's most common is people are using Wi-Fi around their house, and that's most of the time how they connect most of their devices. But Wi-Fi can vary a lot in strength and can be interfered with by a lot of things around the home. So just very quickly, you've got 5 gigahertz, not to be confused with 5G, but you've got 5 gigahertz and 2.4 gigahertz in terms of the two frequencies. 5 gigahertz is actually a higher frequency, which means that effectively you get better speed out of 5 gigahertz, but it won't go as far. So if you're using 5 gigahertz in your home and you're thinking, this is great, I'm right beside the router in my office, and you go away then out, say, to your bedroom or into the lounge room, you might find the speed drops off, not because there's congestion on the internet, but maybe that 5 gigahertz isn't quite reaching you where you are. 2.4 gigahertz typically is a little bit slower, but will go a bit further. But again, it's usually not the bottleneck. The bottleneck usually is the internet. So have a look at your Wi-Fi around your house. If you've got things around the home, for example, refrigerators, filing cabinets, large metal objects, they'll absorb some of that Wi-Fi signal. So if you had, for example, your router sitting in the kitchen and you're sitting on the other side of that in the office, but there was a fridge between the two of you, that might absorb some of that signal. So be aware of where you're locating that router, be aware of the Wi-Fi, putting them up higher. If you have them down low, there are more things to interfere with that signal, so putting it up higher is a good tip as well. The other thing is, obviously it's always sensible to make sure you've got your computers free of viruses, free of malware, but in particular at the moment, you might think it's your kids on Netflix or your wife's meant to be doing some work in the office, but she's not, she's just watching a movie. You might think those things are chewing up all your bandwidth. But if you've got some viruses or malware on one of your computers, that can be sitting in the background chewing up a lot of bandwidth, and you don't actually realise all that bandwidth's being chewed up. You're blaming it on someone else in the house. So making sure that your computers are all clean of viruses, clean of malware, making sure they're all running properly can be a big benefit as well. And of course, do check your plans. Make sure that you're on the best possible plan. If you've got speed boosts that you need to add on there, make sure you're not using so much internet that you then get throttled back. A lot of plans now, if you go up to a certain level with your usage, you might get throttled back. You might think it's slow just because everyone else is using it, but it might be slow because you've hit your limit for the month and you've been throttled back. So don't just accept the fact that it's all these other people using the internet, I'm going to be slow. Have a look at a few of those basic things and you might find you can improve your speed a little bit.
And also people kind of forget that because we're using phones so much on the internet, your phone can actually get viruses and be affected as well, can't they?
You can have things impact your phone, but also your phone calls. A lot of phone calls now use what's called VoLTE, Voice over LTE. And what that's using is rather than the traditional phone network to make a phone call, it's actually using data. So when you're actually on a phone call, you can be using up some of that data. It won't show on your plan as data usage, but can actually be chewing up some of your available bandwidth as well. Not a lot, but if you add up a few of those, and suddenly it can add up to a larger number.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Now, this story, I can't believe it's actually a story, Matt, but you know what? You read stuff on the internet, and then all of a sudden people go and do some stupid things. If
it's on the internet, it must be true. So,
don't you know every word you read on the internet is true?
Absolutely. So some people out there have decided that coronavirus, COVID-19, is not being spread via biological methods. It's not being spread by people coughing or sneezing or breathing on each other. It's actually, get ready for it, it's groundbreaking news here, Andrew. It's actually being spread by 5G towers. Now, I'm not quite sure of the mechanism because, again, biologically, we sneeze on someone, there can be a virus in our sneeze and that gets into your respiratory system and then you've got that same disease. 5G, the same as 4G, 3G, 2G, same as radio waves, TV antenna waves, all those different things we've got out there are all electromagnetic waves. I've never actually heard how it can actually spread a biological virus. I don't know the mechanism by which that works, but apparently there are people out there who not only believe that 5G is spreading the coronavirus, but they're actually attacking some of the towers that are propagating 5G. So mobile phone towers, they're going and committing arson, they're going and burning them down, they're attacking these towers because they're convinced that these towers are spreading the coronavirus.
Oh my gosh, this has been, ever since 5G has rolled out, the conspiracies between China and America and 5G, and it's got nothing to do, the coronavirus was actually a virus that was escaped from a lab and jumped from animals to humans. It's mobile phones are the evil of everything. Did you know, Matt? I have no idea, but look, this has been going on since the 90s. When handhelds came into vogue, all of a sudden everyone was doing studies and there was you can't have the phone too close to your head and all this kind of stuff. But apparently it's going to cause brain cancer and we're all going to die from 5G.
Well, I've been using my first phone I connected on the 26th of July 1990. So I've been using one for 30 years and it hasn't affected me yet at all.
No, I can't believe I got into an argument with someone on Facebook the other day over it. I got sucked in on a social media group, and it did my head in seriously. But apparently, this guy wanted to warn council to ban and was tagging council members in this thread. It's probably still up in community group if you go and find it. But I couldn't believe it. And the whole argument was based on a YouTube video of a lecture from 2015 that was posted to YouTube on 2017. And I sat there and I said, if that's your whole argument on a 5-year-old lecture, I said, you do know in science that all that information that they're talking about would now be superseded and there would be something, oh, no, he has to know. He's a renowned neurosurgeon. He has to know. And I'm sitting there going, oh, my gosh, this is giving me an aneurysm without even using 5G.
See, one of the things or two things I suppose that I mention to people normally when they start talking about 5G or any of the electromagnetic radiation causing health issues, and coronavirus is just the latest one. Normally it's cancer or normally it's some other health issue. There are two things to remember. Electromagnetic waves are waves that are non-ionising radiation. So you've got things that are ionising radiation. For example, if you go standing around Chernobyl, then you're going to probably have some health issues because that radiation is ionising. That's knocking electrons up to a higher electron path because it's ionising radiation. Electromagnetic waves that are used in mobile phones and your broadcasts that are going out to your listeners, all of that is non-ionising radiation. The other part is when you see those videos from 2015 or those videos from whenever it might have been, you always come back to peer-reviewed scientific literature. Show me the peer-reviewed scientific literature that shows 5G or any other types of mobile phone radiation have actually caused problems, and there is none. There are some videos like you've talked about. I've seen one that it killed a bunch of bees because there are a few bees around the base of a 5G tower. Therefore, it must be killing bees, therefore it's going to kill us all. Again, show me the peer-reviewed scientific literature that proves these points. And again, Dr. Martin Cooper, 1973, made the first ever mobile phone call. He worked for Motorola at the time. So they've been around for just a couple of years and we haven't seen any evidence of any health issues yet.
Exactly right. And look, the first case of coronavirus came out last year, and 5G has been rolling out since about 2017, since 2018, right now.
Well, yeah, and certainly it's been available in Australia since 2019, so it's been rolling around for a while. And again, you're right, the technology that's been there and the same concept, it doesn't matter whether it's specifically 5G or not, the same concept with electromagnetic radiation has been around for a number of years with a whole range of different frequencies being used. So we've seen nothing in terms of evidence yet. Sure, a couple of YouTube videos sounds great, but some evidence, some cold hard evidence. I'm quite comfortable using 5G and I let my kids use it. I've got lots of customers who use it. I'm quite comfortable that we're not going to see this huge explosion in some sort of sickness or illness caused by 5G in the future.
Oh, absolutely. Just remember, folks, we went from analog to 2G to 3G. We're now all using 4G, and now we're going into 5G. And seriously, if it was causing brain cancer, every single person in the world would be dead by now.
Exactly right. Think about all the other radiation too, all the other radiation we get from TV antennas, from radio antennas, from satellites that are communicating, from GPS that's communicating, all these things that are communicating to the Earth. Plus, you've got that other little bit of radiation that's hitting us all called the sun. So that's been belting down on us for a number of years. And we do actually get cancers from that. We get skin cancers from the sun. Yeah. So that's more dangerous. If you're worried about radiation, that's more dangerous than using a mobile phone.
I know, right? Let's stop there because we'll be here till next Thursday and then someone else will debunk it and then all of a sudden I'm going to end up in another argument in community groups.
Fair call.